Bandhavi Naidu Hindu. I am from Andhra Pradesh, India, which is the south of India. And I learned Hinduism through my family and just kind of practicing it over the years, as well as reading a lot of stuff. And I hope I can get some Hindu philosophy taught today. So I'm looking at the texts that make up Hinduism, the methods we use to practice Hinduism, examples from our Hindu stories, and then the modern views and how modernization has changed them. So the first thing I want to look at is just the cultural differences, and I believe the easiest way to look at cultural differences is wedding vows. So, and their importances, I guess. So in Western vows, you guys know what these are. They show unity, comfort, material wealth, love, and loyalty. Hindu vows, I'm going to say them in Sanskrit, and they're going to pop up in English on the screen. Ishaye kapati bhava idi pradhamam urje dvipati bhava idi dvitiyam vrataye tripati bhava idi tritiyam mayu bhavaya chatushtati bhava idi chaturtham pasubhyaye panchapati bhava idi panchamam rayushposhaya shashtapati bhava idi shashtam hotraye saptapati bhava idi saptamam. And these basically show support, strength, camaraderie, consistency, family, longevity, and loyalty. See how love is not up there. I'll get into that in a sec. So the texts that make up Hinduism are the Vedas, the Ramayana, the Bhagavad Gita. And specifically I'm looking at the Rig Veda. So the Vedas give us 6 theories of thought. The first one, Sankhya, which is the dual nature of consciousness. The second one is Yoga, which is the division of Sankhya and focus solely on Purusha, or the self. The third one is Nyaya, and it focuses on the 6 Pramanas. The fourth one is Vaishika. It focuses on the 6 Padarthas, or 6 categories. Mimasa, which focuses on Vedic rituals, and then Vedanta, which focuses on deities. I'm just looking at the first 4 for this, which are important for theories. So the first one is Sankhya, which is divided into 2 things. Nature, Prakriti, which is everything. So the universe and your thoughts too. Everything is a result of nature. And then Purusha, which is yourself, but in like the truest form, outside your thoughts. If you divide those, you get Yoga. And in Hinduism, we have a story. So we consider Lord Shiva to be the aspect of the knower, Purusha. And we consider his wife Parvati to be the aspect of Prakriti, or nature. And so when Shiva leaves Parvati to go and meditate, he becomes the first philosopher of yoga, or the Adi Yogi. Now, Nyaya, which means truth, is focused on the 6 proofs. Pratiksha, meaning perception, Anumana, inference, Shabada, testimony, Upamana, comparison, Ardhapadi, presumption, and Anupalabdhi, which means non-perception, or the unperceivable. Vaishika focuses on the 6 categories of things. Is it a substance? Dravya. What is the quality of it? Guna. Does it move? What activity does it perform? Karma. Samanaya means generality. Visesha, particularity. And Samavesa, which means inherence, or the state of being permanent. The methods that we look at in Hinduism are Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. And the most important one is Dharma. That is kind of the main focus of Hinduism. Dharma is divided into 3 things: Yama, Dharma, and Karma. Anyone who's heard of the word karma? It basically means activity. Yama means control, and Dharma means what's right. And put together gives us the philosophy of Dharma, which means responsibility or cosmic order. In the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, Yada yada hi dharmasya jnanit bhavati bharata abhyudhanam adharmasya tadatmanam srijanyam. Meaning, when there is a lack of righteousness or responsibility, when there's dharma has stopped, people have stopped following dharma, he himself as God will come forward and fix it. So it's cosmic order that way. Now, if you don't follow dharma or your responsibility, you face Yama Dharma, the controller of justice. He's the Hindu god of death. And so when Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita asked Krishna, how do we avoid this? He says this. He says, Karmanyevadikaraste ma phalechu kadanchana ma karma phalaheturubuhu ma te samvatsa karmani. Meaning, you have a right to do your actions, but you do not have a right to their results. And if you expect results from your actions or you let that motivate you, you're not following your dharma. Now, the second one is artha, which literally means meaning. And how does we say things have meaning? Well, we classify them as parts of the goddess of prosperity, Lakshmi. So we look at the 8 avatars of Lakshmi, or in Sanskrit, Ashtalakshmi. They are Adi Lakshmi, spiritual wealth; Dhana Lakshmi, financial wealth; Dhanya Lakshmi, agricultural wealth; Gaja Lakshmi, animal wealth; Santana Lakshmi, familial wealth; Veera Lakshmi, the wealth of courage; and Vijaya Lakshmi, the wealth of victory; and Vidya Lakshmi, educational wealth. The next thing we look at is kama, which means lust. It could mean love or desire driven from love or simply just lust. And this is one of the reasons why we don't have it in our wedding vows, is the god Kamadev. And he keeps dying in every one of his stories. He is basically Hindu Cupid. He keeps dying as a symbol that love is not a consistent thing. It is something that demolishes and is reborn. And so because it's not consistent, we can't promise that in our wedding vows for us. Love could also mean, or kama could also mean wish, like what is it you wish in your life, what is it you desire in your life, or all that you desire in your life. And then moksha, which means liberation or release. It's either referred to like enlightenment, or it could be like, death. And it's a state of being full peace and like where you're completely just on your own, like you're completely by yourself and in complete peace. I wouldn't know anything about it. I'm not a Buddhist monk. The examples that we have, which kind of goes into leadership, is in the Ramayana. The Ramayana is the story of Rama, one of our avatars of Vishnu, and one of our gods. The Ramayana basically follows the story of Ram, the prince of Ayodhya, being exiled, and then he goes on a journey into the woods where his wife gets kidnapped, and he goes and tries to find his wife. And the leadership roles in this is one, Lord Rama himself. He's the personification of dharma. And we don't view dharma as charismatic. We view it as transactional. So Rama, he goes on, he meets this man named Sagriva, who is a forest person or a Vanara. And Rama promises to help Sagriva get his kingdom back in exchange for helping fund him to find his wife Sita. Right, so keeping that transaction, keeping his promise is what we see as dharma rather than making that promise in the first place. Right, then there's Dasaratha. Dasa means 10, Radha means chariot. So he's strong enough to control a 10-horse chariot. And he follows contingency leadership. So he changes his leadership style depending on the situation. And he kind of shows us the importance of disregarding artha, or not following what is important. He sends Rama away and ends up passing away due to loneliness. Ravana, who is the antagonist, he's the one who kidnaps Rama's wife, he has great man leadership. Now, Ravana has multiple names. Ravanasura, Asura meaning demon, so he's the demon Ravana. So he's like stronger than a person, he's braver than a person, he's bolder than a person. But also he's called Ravana Brahma meaning scholar or a priest. So he's the priest Ravana. He has funded a lot of temples, he created a lot of things, and he was the king of Lanka, or as Hindus believe it, modern day Sri Lanka. Now we have Sugriva, who is the one Rama had a transaction with to help get his wife back. Sugriva shows us the importance of participative leadership. So he has a giant army of Vanaras, and all of them get together, and they decide what to do, how to build certain things, how to go about the war, all that stuff. So he shows us about participative leadership. Now the Mahabharata, which is the story of the Kurukshetra war. Kurukshetra war is between two sets of cousins, and they can't decide who wants the king, who's going to rule the kingdom. So they basically both decide to fight and see who wins to gain control of the kingdom. The first important leader in this is Arjuna, who's an archer. He learns from God himself. He learns from Krishna. And Arjuna shows behavioralist leadership. He shows change as he goes along in order to better himself before the Kurukshetra war. Now we have Karna, who set his sacrificial relationship. Karna was abandoned as a child, similar to how Moses was abandoned in a river. Karna was the same way. but he was adopted, and then he was raised to be a fisher person. But then he learned to fight and saw Arjuna as his enemy, and so he tried to fight him, and no one would let him because he's not part of the Kshatriyas, or the warrior class. So Duryodhana, the villain of the Mahabharata, stood up for him, and he was willing to sacrifice everything for Duryodhana and fight in this giant war. And Kunti, who is Arjuna's mother, is also Karna's mother. Yeah, plot twist. So when she goes up to Karna and says, please don't commit fratricide, please don't kill your brothers, he sacrifices his victory for her. The third one is Bhishma, who's the eldest and the actual heir to the throne. He practices leadership relationship. And Bhishma basically, he tries to convince people, hey, just let the other party rule, so you don't fight, don't fight within the family, don't have a giant war and kill hundreds of people. Please follow your actual responsibility. No one actually listens to him. They respect him, but they don't listen to him. And the last one is Vidura, who shows servant leadership. Vidura is a minister. He advises the king, who's in charge of the kingdom before the Kurukshetra war, and he says, hey, don't let this happen, and the king ignores everything he does and leads to the war. But Vidura is the only one who stands up for what is right. And he's the only one that doesn't die because he stood up for what is right. Now we have the modern views. We're looking at what is a yuga and what is a modernization, which are two theories as to why India has changed. Well, what is a yuga? A yuga is basically an era or a period of time. We have the Satya Yuga, where we believe humans did not exist, it was only gods and demons. The Treta Yuga, where we believe that humans existed alongside gods and demons. Dwapara Yuga, where there were fewer gods and demons and more humans. And then the Kali Yuga, where there's only humans on Earth, and that is where we are right now. And there's a connection between the yugas and dharma, and it's believed that dharma is lost with every yuga, and we compare them to 4 pillars, right? So if you have a stool that's on 4 pillars, it's stable with all 4, right? But as you take away each one of those legs, it loses stability. So with every single yuga, we lose one of those pillars. And this is Kedareshwar temple, where the statue of Shiva was in between 4 pillars, and we believe that each one of them was lost with a yuga. And so there's only 1 pillar left. And that's how we know it's the Kali Yuga, or the time of, or Kali means he's the 5th avatar of Vishnu. So we believe that Kali is going to come in, and that's how the world's going to end. Now there's another theory is modernization. One is Kula, or caste. So Kula simply means job. In ancient times and in the Bhagavad Gita, it means job. So if you're a scholar, your Kula is a Brahmin, scholars, right? But modern day, it has been legacy, right? So my name is Bandhavi Naidu Hindu. Naidu alludes to the Kapu Kula of Andhra Pradesh, which is the farming caste. I've never farmed a day in my life. My dad, he's a scientist. Aside from a few gardening things he does in our backyard, he's never commercially farmed either. So why would it make sense for us to call ourselves farmers when we'd never commercially farm? So a lot of the stuff that we accumulate with farmers has been lost because we don't practice the certain aspects of that religion. So we lose knowledge that way. The second one is individualism. So there's a lot of Western influence in India right now. So people are trying to say, oh, I want to do this in this moment because it makes me happy. And that's not the dharmic way, right? You're karmanyevadikara. You should do what you should do because it should be done, not because it makes you happy or gives you anything in return. So dharma has been lost because of that. And the last one is knowledge lost for knowledge's sake. So a lot of things are just deemed as superstitions, which is a negative thing in a lot of ways because we lose a lot of credibility because of them. One of the things is in Hinduism, women often smear their feet with turmeric. And this is seen as a thing that mothers do, a thing that women do, grown women. But nowadays it's just oh, it's just a superstitious thing. Well, originally it was meant because women didn't leave the house and they didn't wear shoes inside the house. So they smear their feet in turmeric, so the antibacterial properties of turmeric allowed them to move around and kill microbes on the floor that could potentially harm them or their children. But because it's seen as, oh, it's just something my grandmother did, it's just a superstition, we stop doing it anymore. So we lose a lot of knowledge as to why we even do things. But one thing we don't lose, one thing that every Hindu kid learns about since they're little, is this. Matru Devo Bhava, Pitru Devo Bhava, Acharya Devo Bhava, Atithi Devo Bhava. Honor thy mother as God, honor thy father as God, honor thy teacher as God, and honor thy guest as God. Thank you.